Welcome back to the Puma Podcast. I'm Tory.
I'm Puma.
And on this podcast, we talk about Jesus, life, and everything in between. And guys, we've been going kind of freshly in this new series on worldviews. And last week we talked about 3 questions that every worldview has to answer. And if maybe you don't know your worldview, answer these 3 questions and you'll find it. Very helpful. And today we are talking about another aspect of our worldviews. So Puma, yeah, what's the topic today?
Well, the topic is worldviews. That's the big topic.
That's the big one.
Big topic. I'm not going to reveal exactly what slice we're going to do just yet, but want us really just to recognize and just refresh just real quickly that everybody has a view of life. It determines what's real and how to live. In that reality, everybody does, and our worldview is shaped by all kinds of ideas that come to us from birth through life and our experiences, and those ideas have consequences. And so your worldview, the view of life that you hold, has consequences to your life. And the greatest consequences, I would suggest, are the ones that are eternal. Eternal consequences.
Right, truly.
And so everyone has a view of life. And so when we talk about worldviews, we're not necessarily just saying, here's a bunch of content, but we're going to say, hey, is my view of life accurate? Is my view of life accurate? And honestly, everyone holds a view of life because they think that is the correct view to hold. And yet if you interact with people in any, capacity, your family, work, school, you know that everyone around you often has a different view of life than you do.
Yeah, right.
So who's right?
Yeah.
Am I right and you're wrong? Or are you right and I'm wrong? Or we're both wrong?
Yeah. What's the litmus test for what makes something real? Is it perspective? Is it experience? Because, you're right. We all have various degrees of all of those. Yeah.
And everybody lives out the answers to these 3 questions that we talked about last week. And the first question is, who am I? Where'd I come from? We don't consciously ask that question that way, but we live out our view or our answer to that question, right? Because all of us are here. Whether I'm physically here or I'm just a perception or projection, right? Some people think that.
Right.
So who am I and where did I come from? Everyone lives out their answer or their view of the second question is what's wrong with our world, or what's wrong. Maybe not with the world. Maybe they, but something is wrong.
Right. In the Christian world, the question is, where does sin come from? Right.
But people outside, that have a different worldview, they would still say, well, something's very, very wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, everyone knows that something is wrong, or everyone is living to make today better than yesterday. And that just implies that yesterday wasn't perfect. So everyone is striving to make things. So everyone lives out their worldview perspective of their answer to that question. The third one then is, what's the third question?
The third question is, how do you fix it? What do you do with all this pain, all this badness, sin, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah. Non-comfortable life. Maybe my whatever it is, but how do I fix it? Everyone lives out their answer to that. And so your worldview, how you view the world, your lens that you look through, determines how you answer those questions. And so that's where we've been on worldviews. And so today we really want to kind of get to the foundation, really. The foundation that every worldview that people have, everybody has, rests upon. And so that's kind of where, the foundation. And so
the core of those 3 questions go back to one central idea. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
All right, Puma. So here we are in this next podcast. And I know we've talked a lot behind the scenes here. But let's address this foundational truth. What is this big idea that underlines every worldview?
The big idea that underlines every view of life and every culture throughout history really is this concept of God, right? We live in a Western culture. Today, we would say our American culture is kind of postmodern, and some would label it like post-Christian. I don't know why we'd label it post-Christian, because the founding of our country, if there was one big fundamental idea that all of the colonists believed, was that there was a God who was sovereign, who was powerful, who was in control, who the idea of divine providence in our founding documents, that there was this providential God who was sovereign, all-powerful, that had an influence on the colonists' lives, right? So today we would say we're post-Christian because as people in American culture, especially today, there isn't a shared concept of an all-powerful sovereign that dictates our cultural values and decisions that people. But that doesn't mean that people don't have an idea or concept of God. You think of Native Americans. Their whole way of life was revolved around their concept of their gods or their deities.
Yeah.
And that might be wrapped up in sort of like their ancestry and the spirits or whatever. But there was some kind of higher power or some kind of controlling influence that kind of shaped or helped or dictated how life went.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, this big idea of God, it's a question of theology. I mean, our worldviews, what we think about God is crucial. And yet, I mean, a post-Christian, the 21st century, we don't think about God that often. I mean, if you hear God, it's probably a swear word, unfortunately. And in our culture, it just amazes me that something so foundational, something that, like you said, the Indians, I mean, go back in history, right? You go back to, Alexander the Great. You go back to any, big, even Hitler. I mean, these people, it was a religiously led crusade, the Crusades themselves. Throughout the course of mankind, our theology has shaped everything.
Right. And you think ancient Egypt.
Right, exactly.
I mean, every culture throughout the history of man had some kind of concept of deity, right? And they would go to war over, whose deity is like the real deity and supreme. And people's lives would revolve around that. So my whole life is dictated around how I can appease my deity, for instance, or whatever. So Troy, let me ask you this question. Yeah. So when you hear the word God, right? Not any particular God, but just the concept of God. Like, what if we were to define just that? What is God? Or people would define just God, like in a dictionary. Like, what is God? What are some of the kind of the big descriptions?
Sure. Yeah. Culturally speaking, I would say if we had to define God as a Gen Z millennial, I would say that God is a higher being. Some interpret it however you want, whether it's the force, whether it's vibes, whether it's a spirit. There is some type of higher being that either looks down upon Earth or maybe, again, it varies in general, but some type of powerful being that can control certain things and maybe has feelings, maybe cares, maybe doesn't care, but it is outside of our realm. It's something we can't see, but it's something we can experience.
Okay. So like a higher power, you said?
Yeah.
Power, right. So control, maybe?
Yeah, some would say so.
Control. But I mean, just the concept of God, right? Like in the dictionary, when we think of God, like you think of it like a man, right? A man has certain characteristics, right? You think of God, by definition, has to have some kind of characteristics to be considered God.
A supernatural power.
Powerful.
Something that humans can't do.
Yeah,
it's a supernatural.
Just, I mean, energy for something out, just something powerful, right? Yeah, and so, when we think of our questions, who am I, where'd I come from, right? Well, did I cause myself?
Yeah, right. I mean,
no. Well, there has to be some kind of power or force to cause me.
Energy,
right. So, what's wrong with this world? Right? If there is a God, and the God has power, would not this God or gods or whatever be able to help fix what's wrong, or help decide what's wrong or like
it set the standard for mankind or morality. Like if this God has a personality, then what he sets in motion affects the universe, right?
Right. Now, what if what's wrong with the world is God?
Sure. I mean,
right?
that's a perspective.
Yeah, someone could have that perspective. So how do you fix it? You find a different
God.
Yeah. You get a better God, right? See, our questions, these kind of worldview questions that everybody lives out, fundamentally are resting upon each individual's view or perspective of who they believe or think or God to be. Or maybe they don't believe there is a God.
Sure. So like an atheist, right? First question, where'd you come from? Well, based on their theology, their view of God, there is no God. So they have to justify their being by something else, right? Some Big Bang.
Right.
I've even talked to some, kind of odd, but some, atheists who actually believe that there is a force, but it's not a God. So there's an energy, but it's not supernatural. It's just
Right.
like an animal. It just exists. It is more powerful than people.
Right. So like nature would have
Sure.
power.
Yeah. Mother Nature.
Right.
Yeah.
They might even use words like eternal.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Which is interesting because, you think of whatever your concept of God would be, eternality would probably fit in there somewhere.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean,
God
if
doesn't age.
yeah, I mean, if a God is created, is it really God? Well, there might be some like lesser gods that are created, but that implies that there was a more powerful,
True.
right?
Yeah.
So let's go up the chain of command to the most powerful
Yeah.
God or deity.
Mhm.
See, everyone believes in something that is powerful or eternal or that has some kind of bearing upon their life. Something
outside of them.
something outside of them, because we just know that we didn't cause ourselves to be here.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there has to be something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And whether that something is like an actual God or a bunch of God, or maybe I don't exist, but my perception of me exists. Maybe you really don't exist, Tory.
True.
I mean,
Yeah. Maybe we're on some matrix.
Yeah,
some
maybe
digital simulation.
Right. But that implies though that there is something versus
True.
nothing.
Yeah.
And there's so
Right.
if we aren't actually here, we are just part of like some super complex, intelligent computer program.
Yeah.
There's still something, right? There's
Yeah.
still something that exists out there. So this idea of theology, everyone has a theology, the study of God. Not that people study God, but everyone has a theology in their view of God. Who or whom or however or who many or maybe not existent dictates their life.
Or even the hedonistic types of, I am God. There is no God, therefore I am the ultimate power. And even that too, I know it's pretty narcissistic to think you're God, but even the people that I've met that claim that, I am my own God, I set my own rules, very independent, no limitations, very libertarian. I don't want I'm under some structure. I set my own life, my own rules. Even that concept is still assuming there is a sense of right and wrong that they did not create.
Right.
That there is still a sense of morality they didn't create. It is wrong to murder. But if they think that, right, there's still a system that they live in. And it makes me wonder, do they really believe that they are the ultimate? Is it like a mental health problem where they're actually delusional and all of a sudden they can't actually exist in reality? But their view of self, if you make yourself your God, and my goodness, there's so many songs, celebrities, YouTubers that talk about, you be your own Jesus. I even heard last week of some YouTuber, like, you be on your own throne. You can do it. You deserve it. That in our culture, like you mentioned before, is so post-Christian. We've now replaced our founding nation that was biblically based to replace it with, you can be God now.
Right.
Whatever you want can be God now.
And I'll be honest, that is really appealing to people, even to me. The thought I can be my own God, right? Mm-hmm. Which is fine, but our worldview dictates what is real and how to live in that reality. So let's suppose I believe, or I want to believe, that I'm my own God. Well, then where did I come from? Who am I and where did I come from if I'm my own God? And if what's wrong with the world and I'm my own God, then maybe the source of what's wrong, right?
You're to blame.
Yeah, and if the world is still messed up, then how godlike am I because I can't fix it, or just fix not even the world, just fix my own life, right? Everybody seems to have a quote unquote messed up life today.
Yeah.
And if I'm my own God, then how well is that working out for you?
That's a good
You see,
point.
one's view of life, and so we want to live in reality, the real reality, because everybody wants meaning and purpose and value, love, and all the desires of every human heart for a successful purposeful existence
Mm-hmm.
is wrapped up in how they view the world. And so their worldview is always pushing them to that. And so we live out the answers to those three questions. And foundationally, it comes back to who or what is God? What am I leaning up? What is my life leaning upon or resting upon that helps me understand who I am, where I came from, helps me understand what's wrong with the world, etc.
Yeah, it's really helpful to understand what we believe and why in terms of our view of God, our theology. But if I may, I once had a student in previous church, and they asked me, they were new, they came for a couple of weeks with a friend, and we were talking about, but I know Jesus came up, right? And I sat down and talked with this guy, and I asked him, so what do you believe about God? I mean, what's your theology? He's like, I have no idea. I haven't thought about it. I don't know. I'm not even sure how to self-identify what I believe. I'm still exploring, but I have no idea what I believe. For those who are listening, whether they're there or they know someone who's there, I mean, how do you help identify your theology when you don't even maybe know what you believe? I mean, I think for young people today are so confused, not just with like identity and sexual identity, but we don't know what we believe because we don't know ourselves well. So how do you identify your theology when you don't even know what it is you actually think about God, if there is a God?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And we really have a hard time today thinking about things in any kind of sequential or like evaluating or discerning. We are all about experiencing today, right? Just kind of enjoying the moment. And so it does take some work to do a little introspection and think, all right, I'm going to think about God. I haven't given God a whole lot of thought. If there is a God, is he knowable? If there is a God, is he intelligent? If there is a God, is he loving? Are there many gods? Can you have many ultimates? Or is there only one ultimate and then sub-ultimate, right? You can, I mean, just start asking questions and then just kind of answering your questions. So if there is a God, should he be loving? Maybe God doesn't have to be loving, but then if God isn't a loving God, what are the implications for that?
Right. Well,
right?
that was
so you start kind of. Sometimes your brain might start hurting. If someone is really just kind of questioning, I would just say get down a pen and paper, just start asking questions, and then go look for answers. Which then and that kind of leads into some other
True.
things.
Right. Well, even like not to get into next week's podcast, but when it comes to dissecting our theology, from my experience, a lot of my teens, a lot of my Gen Z individuals, they equate God to their earthly experiences. Like, well, if my dad was this way, God's probably like that. Or, because my best friend betrayed me, my teacher, someone I respected, hurt me, backstabbed me, they project their view of God based on their experiences. And I love what you said about experiences. Yeah, we are very emotional. We equate so much truth and our reality to our experiences. And if God is nothing more than our experiences, you could have some great experiences or some bad ones, but they change. Right. And even God, their theology changes.
And that's a good point in how our worldviews are shaped, right? Our worldviews are shaped through our life experiences, right? You think of a little kid, right? A baby is born, he grows up, he's 6 months old. You ever play peekaboo with a 6-month-old kid, right? That kid has no idea what you're doing. They don't know if this is supposed to be fun or if this is scary, right? You play peekaboo the first time with a 6-month-old. Some kids cry because they think it's scary because they're learning how to view life. They're learning what is considered fun and what isn't. And in our world today, especially like our 3 worldview questions, the second one is what's wrong with the world. How kids grow up. And, this is why some people think we need to have better education. If we could just fix education, then people would have better experiences. And then, or if we could just fix our government, right, and have better laws, then people would have better opportunities, etc. Right. And how these things then begin to shape our view of God. So, like, think of Job, for example, in the Bible, right? So he has a view of God. He's a righteous man,
Mm-hmm.
right? He is devoted, and just the story of Job, where God allows Satan to strip him of all his wealth and everything. Does Job have an understanding of who God is?
Mm-hmm.
Are these experiences shaping his perspective of God?
Yeah, probably. It's influencing for sure.
Yeah, it's influenced for sure. I mean, it is putting his view of God to the test for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does he really believe that God is good? Does he really believe that God is loving?
It's challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the book of Job, God questions Job and goes through all these things. And it's interesting because God, he says, like, who let the wild donkeys go free? Who untied its ropes, Job? Do you know? Do you know all the wild donkeys up in the hills and mountainside? Do you know who they all are? And when the animals give birth, do you know all these things that go on in the world? Job, are you so intelligent that you can think that you should be on par with me in how the world is run and everything? Job, Job had no idea of what was going on behind the scenes when Satan came and questioned God's love and loyalty with Job. I mean, it never changed God's love for Job, never changed his desire for Job. But it's interesting, as Job went through that experience, and then as God confronted him at the end of Job, he says, now I've heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. And I have a humble repentance to life. In other words, Job's perspective of God grew going through that experience, experientially, right? But some people go through a hardship, and their experience, they say, no, God can't be loving if he's letting this happen to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this gets into a lot of other, your view of God touches every other category of life. It touches, morality. It touches, what I think I deserve, right? And all these other things. And so this is why it's foundational, because we'll get into some of these other topics in weeks to come and how our view of God impacts all these things. So
no, that's good. No, that's good, Puma. Thank you. And what's a good application question? Because theology is so important. Our view of God, the way we see, think about, experience God. I mean, it really is a big deal. So what's a good application question for us today?
Yeah, so A.W. Tozer, in his book, Knowledge of the Holy, the very first line of the first chapter, he says, what comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. And I think he's right about that what comes into mind when I think about God. So just an applicational question for us today is this, all right? So, get out a pen and paper, and here's the question. Yeah, what comes into your mind when you think about God? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Just kind of write that down. Your first reaction is going, like your first response to that, like what things come to mind? Is it God? Is it Jesus? Is it love? Is it whatever? And, because you can't move to where you need to be if you don't know where you are. And so identifying who you believe God to be currently, can help you then readjust your lens or maybe, grow to evaluate, maybe you are on the right concept of God. So I would even ask this question to people: did Jesus have a theology? Right?
Yeah.
Did Jesus have a theology?
Yeah.
What's his theology? I mean, he grew up in Israel, and Israel believed there was one God. Did Jesus believe that? Yes. Right? Did the people believe that? Yes. So the first question, where we come from? We came from God, right? Second question, what's wrong with the world? Well, the Jews would say, yeah, there's a problem in the world, and because people are evil and sinful. Did Jesus believe that? Yeah. Right? Third question, how do you fix it? Right? The Jews believed, well, you got to be a good person. Jesus believed, no, you got to believe in me. See, Jesus shared similar theology, but it wasn't quite exactly the same, because Jesus knew and understood that he was God. So you have a situation like in John 5, where Jesus says, I'm working and my Father's always working. And the Jews picked up stones to stone Jesus because Jesus was claiming to be God. See, that's where their shared understanding of God differed. And so it helped them answer the first two worldview questions correctly, but because they differed on Jesus' part,
the solution.
The solution was wrong. See, this is why even in the church today, we need to really focus in on who God is and get an accurate picture, because we can sit side by side with people and we can see the same God that we say we both believe, but we are overemphasizing maybe different things, and so might be coming to different conclusions on how to answer those questions.
Right, our priorities. Yeah, many similarities, but the way we prioritize and value certain theological points can be very different. Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah. What comes into your mind when you hear the name God? Yeah, this is the most important thing about you. Cool. Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Puma. Guys, if you have any questions or comments, please, as always, feel free to email us at thepumapodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, guys, hey, appreciate you guys tuning in with us and learning with us. I look forward to next week. I'm very excited about next week. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys next week, Fridays at 10:10.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Until then, bye.